Welcome to the Insights on Internships from Professor Jones podcast, or IOI for short. If you're a student studying hospitality and tourism management, and you have an internship or work experience requirement, this podcast is for you. That also includes those of you in event management, or MICE emphasis as it's called in certain parts of the world. It's my objective to pass along the knowledge I've gained in nearly 50 years in the hospitality field. As an industry professional, I hired and managed interns. As a faculty member, I supervised students in their internships and oversaw internship courses. As an academic administrator, I developed curriculum that incorporated internships and work experience. So I've experienced every aspect of the process. Each episode will typically be less than 15 minutes long. The topics will cover the entire range from determining the type of internship you want, through the actual internship experience, and finally the reflection afterwards on what you've learned and how to connect it to your future career ambitions. The topic of this episode is turning a work experience into an internship. If you're going to be doing a part-time work experience or seasonal employment in the hospitality, tourism, or MICE industry, why not make it more valuable for you and your employer and convert it to an internship? And I'm suggesting you do this regardless of whether it's required in your program or not. While the focus of the episode is on the student, this would be an episode to be shared with the management of your employer or potential employer for sure. The agenda, we'll talk about the differences between the two, work experience and internship, why you should make it an internship, and then how, including the key elements involved. So let's talk about a work experience first. Work experience could be part-time, seasonal, or even a full-time job. It's single position focused. It's important to getting a feel for the industry. You learn things like industry jargon and how things work within an operation, even the areas that maybe you like within the industry. Sometimes it's required in four-year degree programs or for graduation from a diploma or an associate program. It's usually based on hours, and it could be a pre-qualifier for upper-level courses, such as a full-time internship. But there's no additional commitment here from the industry employer. In other words, it's a job. An internship, or maybe another terminology for it might be an integrated work study program, or IWSP as we used to call it at Singapore Institute of Technology. It's a work plus commitment. It's a structure to guide the learning process for learning the hotel or the MICE company operations. It's more than a job, which requires more commitment and time, which should be expected to be paid time. It means the employer needs to take a future management employee perspective in the way they structure the internship and the job. So why should you do it? First, let's look at industry. Using it not only to contribute to a student's learning experience, but also a recruiting tool for future leadership. In a tight job market, it can be a point of differentiation between you and your competitors. It's a commitment for a future staff level position, for a person with ambitions for a career in the industry. I mean, certainly we want motivated people working in the jobs that we're doing, and those studying in the industry are a perfect example of that. Generating new ideas and innovation to improve on customer service, particularly from a younger generation. For a student, it's an extension of the learning process. Why you chose to study for a university degree, for example. Preparation for entering a management position upon graduation. It can expedite your career progression. A little like taking an AP course in high school to prepare for college in a USA scenario. It provides direction for the area of the industry to pursue your career. It helps you to make the right choice. and it's establishing your resume and your credentials. So how? Well, there are key elements that should be included. A rotation between positions. B, shadowing managers. C, attending management meetings. And D, a project focused on an area of need for the hotel or MICE company. Now you can see the IOI podcast episode, Final Project or Capstone Project, for more details on this. But let's look at the elements in more detail. First, let's start with A, the rotation between positions. Ideally, the internship would involve at least 2 rotations if there's a 3-month or less period of time. They don't have to be equal in time, and they could be done simultaneously, perhaps splitting a day, for example, or doing each on different days in the same week. Positions could fall under the same area of operations, such as front desk and reservations. Ideally, it would be under different department managers to expose you to different management styles. The longer the time frame of the internship, the more rotations that are possible. There should be a set of learning objectives that you as an intern should be following for each rotation position. And also, there should include a series of research questions developed for you to progress on an internship learning continuum, as I call it. And you can see more on that IOI podcast for more details on that as well. Now, a great reference for creating the structure I'd recommend is a book by my former colleague, Dr. Michael Collins. It's titled Make It Count, Getting the Most from a Hospitality Internship. It was published in 2017 by Kindle Hunt Publishing. It gives some excellent ideas on how to structure rotations, for example. B, shadowing managers. Part of the learning process is to understand a manager's role. You need to think in that context. So setting up a time each week to simply shadow the manager of the department in their daily operation is a great way to do that. You observe the role and how the manager handles the management of their staff. This probably shouldn't include staff discipline issues, as they would be peers of you as an intern, for example. It means extra time commitment for both you and the managers, but it pays off in a big way in the end. C, attending management and staff meetings. Much like the management shadowing, the key here is to learn how decisions are made. But in this case, it's from the department or the entire operation perspective. A weekly staff meeting would be the first priority here. This meeting typically gives every department head the opportunity to discuss what is happening and then relating it to the entire operation. But other meetings might include things such as the recruitment presentations, interviews for positions, new employee orientation. It might even include attending management skill training sessions if the timing is appropriate while you're doing your internship. And D, the project. Now, there's much more on this on the IOI podcast mentioned earlier, but the key is that it should be helping the employer do research on a critical issue they normally do not have time or the funds to do. It could very well carry over to a full-time position after the internship, hired on graduation to complete it, for example. So remember, it's about learning to be a manager. So in summary, it's about manager duties and responsibilities. It's also about what it's like to be managed. And it's a need to know your future employees and staff perspective, because that's the position that you're going to be in while you're working there. You experience management meeting dynamics and interdepartmental operations. If it's done right, it's a win-win for the student and the employer. I highly encourage it. I hope you can make it work out. Thanks for listening to this episode of my IOI podcast. If you heard something you liked, please share it with your fellow classmates. I'd also encourage you to forward it on to your faculty internship supervisor. Hey, you could even include your supervisor at your place of work. Enjoy your internship learning experience.